So in this video we are going to sort out the zombie now, so that the zombie moves more effectively and actually avoids these tombstones, etc. But first of all, we have obviously 3 different characters. They do need to be dynamic, which means that we can't click static. If you click static, they won't move. They'll be positioned where they are. Now we've noticed that on the ground, anything that's marked static, it batches all of these together, or almost as though they're one single object. There is something called dynamic batching. If we click edit and project settings, and we go to I think it's player and other settings, we should see static dynamic batching. Alright, so you can actually click that, and what it will do, it will actually find all objects that are exactly the same. So in other words, if there's 4 zombies, they all share the same material, they're all relatively low poly, so it will actually batch them together. So instead of it rendering 4 different zombies, it technically just renders 1 zombie but as 4 instances of them. Alright, that's going to help us in our profiler. It only really works on low poly objects. If it's a really high poly object and it's got loads of polygons, the computer simply can't handle the batching. Alright, but it will work perfectly for this game. Okay, so our zombie needs to know where these tombstones are. The best way to do this is to actually create a navigation mesh. So if I go to Window and AI and Navigation, we get this little area, and what we need to come down to is the bake section. The bake section is going to look at anything that's static, that doesn't move, and it's going to exclude it from the areas where the zombie can walk into. So what I'm going to do, simply click bake. Alright, it's going to create this little blue section. Notice how it's not going around these tombstones. Alright, so any of these areas where it's cut out, the zombie cannot walk through. Also means that you can't walk through walls and that kind of thing. So he's now basically going to have to kind of walk around these sections. Now in order for this to work, the zombie character will also need to have a nav mesh agent that can actually walk around here. So if I go over to my inspector and I add a component, I'm going to type nav mesh agent, the first one. Okay, this adds this little cylinder around the character, and the speed can be defined here. Okay, so the speed on this one, I'm probably going to have him walk relatively slow, so about 0.25. If it's too fast, it's almost like he's going to be running toward the player. Bear in mind, this blue section only shows up when you're on the navigation tab. Alright, so that's now going to enable him to walk around. Now for this, I do need another script, unfortunately. It's only going to work on the zombie. In fact, actually no, I don't need another script. I can actually just run it through the enemy move script, not a problem. But to do that, I need to define what's a zombie, what's a bat, what's a ghost. So to do that, I'm going to create a public of type bool. Boolean, it can either be true or false, and I'm going to call this zombie. Another public bool called bat, and another public bool called ghost. So if I now save this, wait for that to compile. So now on my zombie, I can just check that box. So now I know that's a zombie. On my bat, I can say that's a bat. And on my ghost, I can say that's a ghost. Alright, so now we can use that. So in the update, we don't want this command to work for the zombie, but we do want it to work for the bat and the ghost. So what we can say is if bat is equal to true, 2 equal signs, and we need to use an OR. That's basically 2 of those. And the way I did that was shift and my backslash, and that gives me 2 of those. Okay, or ghost is equal to true. If either of those are true, then it will basically run this. So just putting some curly brackets in there. That's just shift and square bracket on my keyboard. Okay, if it's a zombie, it's going to completely ignore that. Okay, the reason why we want a zombie to be moved by a nav mesh agent. Now, in order to do that, we need to tell Unity that we're using an AI. All right, so artificial intelligence. So we're using Unity engine.ai. Reason why we have to do that, the AI definitions have definitions for things like nav mesh agent, which we need to define. So we're going to say public of type nav mesh agent. And I'll simply call this agent. Now in the start, I am actually going to bring this back again. I'm going to call my own function. All right, I'm going to call it, oh, sorry, I need to do it inside of an if. Only if it's a zombie. So if zombie is equal to true. I'm going to run my own custom function that I'm going to create. I'm going to call this move to. Not move towards, but move to. There we go. It'll remain red until I actually create this. Make sure it's outside of the update. So I'm going to say void move to. There we go. Changes to yellow to say that it's now a custom function. And then inside of this, I simply want to say move my agent, which is my nav mesh agent, over to where the player is. So I'll say agent.destination equals player target dot position, and that's it. Oh, make sure I spell destination correct. And that's it. That will basically move the zombie. Notice that I've called this in its own custom function. I could place the agent.destination in the update, but then it's basically going to be giving that command each and every frame. With a nav mesh agent, it's not necessary. You only need to tell it once, and it will do it until it actually reaches that player target position, which is why I'm calling it on the start, because that's only run once right at the beginning of the game, and then the move to gets called pretty much once in the zombie's lifetime. All right, so once again we're optimizing. Instead of running it every frame, we're running it once. Okay, so let's save this. And only on the zombie character do we need access to that nav mesh agent, which is there. Just drag that into that slot. On the bat and the ghost, you can actually leave those as none. Not a problem, because they're never being called in that script. It's only called if zombie is equal to true. Only then does it actually access that agent. So let's try this now in the simulator and see the difference. Notice the zombie is now moving around that tombstone. Okay, so he's not walking through the tombstone, he's going extremely slow. And there we go. All right, so he's avoiding it. Notice he's also staying on the ground. The nav mesh agent will always stay on the ground. The others can be floating because one's a ghost, one's a bat. All right, doesn't need to be on the ground. And if you want that zombie to be a little bit quicker, you can, if you like, just change the speed here in the nav mesh agent.